Welcome to the second video in the Colored Pencil course, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. In this video, we're going to take a look at colored pencil basics. In this module, we'll explore a few foundations essential for success with colored pencil drawing. We'll begin by looking at the compositional makeup of a colored pencil. We'll also take a look at mark making, how the surface affects marks, mixing blacks, and the 5 do's for mixing better hues. Colored pencils are manufactured by a variety of companies. Each brand and type of colored pencil is different. The core material found in the pencil affects how it will behave on the surface and the marks that are possible. A colored pencil is simply a pigmented shaft of color held together by a binder that's encased in a wooden pencil. The core of the pencil determines the type of colored pencil. Wax-based colored pencils are the most common type of colored pencil. The pigment is held together by a waxy binder. Oil-based pencils feature pigment that's held together by a vegetable-based oil. With watercolor pencils, the pigment is held together by a gum binder, allowing it to be activated by water. The pigmented core is held together by a wood casing. Typically, cedar wood is used, but other woods are used as well. Pressure plays an important role in how a colored pencil will behave on the surface. Therefore, it's important to consider the amount of pressure that you apply when you're making marks on a surface. Logically, an infinite range of pressure can be applied using a colored pencil. But for this video series, we'll simplify it into 3 categories: light pressure, medium pressure, and heavy pressure. The range of pressure applied with a colored pencil can affect a number of aspects in a colored pencil drawing. By varying the pressure, the value and intensity of the color is affected. Here's a look at varying the pressure using hatching and varying the pressure using cross-hatching. Notice how the value can be manipulated as well as the intensity of the color. To help better communicate the amount of pressure that I will be applying to the pencil during the demonstrations in this course, we'll use a system. L will be used for light pressure, M will be used for medium pressure, and H will be used for heavy pressure. You can find these symbols in the upper right-hand corner as applications are made during the demonstration. Next, we'll consider the different types of mark making that can be used to apply colored pencil to the surface. Here, lines are made in the same diagonal direction. These are referred to as directional lines. By crossing these lines, we can create smoother transitions of value and smoother gradations of color in the colored pencil drawing. Another method that can be used to apply colored pencil is known as circling, and circling is simply creating small circles that overlap each other. This method is great for creating smooth gradations and slow transitions between values and colors. Of course, the artist is not limited to just directional lines and circling. Any type of mark can be made. Here are a couple examples of creative mark making. These marks might be used to create textures that might exist in the subject, or to create special effects that may be needed for certain applications. Colors are also layered, and usually layering the colors with the same technique creates consistency. In this case, canary yellow is layered over the top of the indigo blue that's already been applied. In the section with directional lines were made to apply the canary yellow. In the section with circling, the same can be said where circling is used to apply the yellow. Of course, this isn't a rule. Various types of applications can be made depending on the desired effect. Additional layering of colors produces more depth in the color. Logically, some of the colors that have previously been laid down will show through subsequent layers. Optical color mixing is often the result. This should be taken advantage of when using colored pencils. The texture of the paper, or the surface in which colored pencils are applied, will affect the behavior of the colored pencil medium. Smoother surfaces, like for example Bristol paper, will allow for smoother gradations and transitions of color and value. The tooth or texture of the paper should be greatly considered when starting a colored pencil drawing. If a smoother gradation of value and color is desired, then it's advised to use a smoother surface, like Bristol paper. A smoother surface will also require less colored pencil media to be used. Surfaces with a heavy tooth or a rough surface will logically produce different marks. It will also require that more colored pencil media be used. Because rough surfaces have small valleys in them, some of the colored pencil material might have trouble going into those spaces. This might produce a texture that is actually desired. Black is a very strong pigment. It can sometimes look unnatural when used in a color drawing. This is especially the case with colored pencil drawings. Here's a look at the manufactured black. And black on its own does look a bit unnatural, but how does it look when it's mixed with other pencils? For example, we use a bit of crimson red and layer over the top of it with the manufactured black. While it does create a darker value of red, it still looks a bit unnatural. The solution to this is going to be to make our own black, closer to the black that we actually see in the natural world around us. To create this natural black, we'll first layer down dark umber, and then we'll lay indigo blue on top of it. If the color that's created is still too blue, we can go back on top of it with another application of dark umber. If you don't have these colors, that's okay. You can still create a natural black by layering brown and blue on top of each other. Mixing our own blacks allows us to control the color temperature as well. More blue will produce a cooler black, and more brown will produce a warmer black. A natural black mixture works to darken up values of other colors as well, as seen here with the crimson red. There are 5 things to keep in mind when using colored pencils that will lead to higher quality results. We'll call these the 5 do's for better hues, and we'll demonstrate each one of these in the production of a drawing of a cube. The first thing is to layer your colors. A single color used by itself doesn't often lead to a representational result. Instead, you'll need to layer colors in order to produce more depth in the color, which will lead to a more realistic looking drawing. In this example, we started the drawing by drawing out the cube with a sepia toned colored pencil. Next, we're applying apple green, which will be the local color of our cube. But in a moment, we'll begin to layer different types of colors on top of that green in order to create more depth. We'll add a bit of cast shadow behind the cube as well, and we'll do this with a dark umber. Which leads me to the next thing to keep in mind, and that is you'll need to mix colors, which will naturally happen when you layer your colors. In this case, to create a bit of coarse shadow on the cube, we'll layer a bit of indigo blue on top of the apple green that we've already applied. Both of these applications, or rather all three of these applications so far, have been very light applications. The blue will naturally mix with the apple green that we've already applied, creating more of a blue-green color. We'll also apply some of that indigo to the darker area of cast shadow that happens behind the cube. In this case, we're going to layer the indigo right on top of the dark umber. The top of the cube is receiving the most intense area of light. So yellow is a color that's used to produce green, so we'll use yellow on top to layer there. We'll also use a grass green color to layer on the midtone area of the cube. This will produce three distinct areas of color and value on the cube. They may seem extremely different at this point, but we'll harmonize them by layering the green apple color that we originally used on top of them. This time, however, we'll apply more pressure to the apple green, which will allow the color to mix with the colors that we've already put down. This will produce a darker value of the apple green in the area of coarse shadow on the cube, a mid-tone value of the apple green in the area of mid-tone on the cube, and a lighter version of apple green, which will happen on the top of the cube. The third do for better hues is to be patient. It's very easy to become impatient when you're putting layer after layer of colored pencil on a surface. But it's very important to create the depth that's necessary, which will lead to a realistic colored pencil drawing. Patiently building up those layers will eventually lead up to a heavy application, which is the fourth do for better hues. With our underlayers developed, we can start to apply more pressure on the colored pencil. In this case, we're going to go over the top of the highlighted area with a white colored pencil, this time applying heavy pressure. We'll also go over the midtone area with our apple green color, again applying heavy pressure. And we'll also layer heavily in the area of coarse shadow on the cube. Again, the colors that we've already applied will show through, but this time the cube seems harmonious because we've applied heavy pressure over the top and developed our values to a point that makes sense. To add a bit of contrast to the cube, I'm going to create somewhat of a background here. We're going to create a neutral background with a little bit of gray. A medium application is used here with directional lines. I'll go over the top of it with a heavy application of white. To develop the cast shadow a bit further and to make it harmonious with the background, I'll add a bit of dark gray. The fifth do for better hues is to add details last. Colored pencil material will layer right on top of what you've already put down nicely and easily, so you can save your details to the very end. There aren't a lot of details here on the cube, but we can help define the outlines or the contours of the cube a bit further by making the lines where the cube meets the surface a little bit stronger. I'll do this with a sharp dark umber. Now the cube we've drawn here is definitely not a completed drawing. It's more or less a sketch, but it's done so to illustrate the principles and techniques that will be used in the upcoming demonstrations for this course. Now let's do a quick review at what was discussed in this module. In this module, we took a look at the compositional makeup of colored pencils and how they differ. We looked at the importance of the pressure applied to the pencil. Mark making techniques were also explored. We saw how the surface texture can affect the mark that's made by the colored pencil. We also learned how to mix natural blacks. And we took a look at the 5 do's for better hues, which included layering your colors, mixing colors, being patient, building up a heavy application of medium, and then adding details last. In the next module, we're going to take a look at burnishing and using medium.